I'm Rabbi Patrick, and welcome to Kehila. Where do the people who inspire go to get inspired? This is a question clergy of all traditions must face, and for me, at least in part, it comes from spending time with people here in Richmond who I call friends, colleagues, and mentors. This is a special episode because I'm taking you outside the walls of Kehila and our members to introduce you to the people in Jewish Richmond who you may not have met before. Think of this like dropping in at a coffee shop with friends, or going to an event where you don't know anyone but me, and we're standing together as I introduce you to people and quickly get into meaningful conversations. For our first episode, I'd like you to meet Rabbi Elisha Paul, the head of school at RTA, Hebrew Day School. If I had a youngster at home, I'd certainly be drawn to RTA. It's not just for the Judaics or even the general studies or because Rabbi Paul is a friend. It's an energy. Now, okay, I'll say it, and it's a little fringe because I'm, 42 years old, a little cringy, I might say, but honestly, RTA has vibes. Their slogan should read, RTA, it's what school's supposed to be. Big thanks to Rivka, engagement coordinator and reading specialist at RTA, and the staff for being so accommodating during school hours. In this episode, you'll hear kids laughing and playing, school bells going off in the background, and it's 100% unedited, because hearing the life going on in the background is half the fun. Rabbi Paul and I discuss our approach to Jewish community building, the changes we see in Jewish life and learning, and you might be surprised to hear that Rabbi Paul is the chief rabbi of foodieism. Something that I can certainly get behind. Enjoy.
I want to share with you the coolest thing I ever learned from research about Judaism. And there's a comma there, not research about Judaism. Research, comma,
About Judaism.
about Judaism.
Okay, so what's that?
There was a book, and I have notoriously bad memory for things, but there was a Yale professor who did research of all the ancient traditions and religions in the world that were most prevalent.
Okay.
And he picked like a bunch of different religions and picked like the most ancient teachings. So he figured if it's that long lasting, it's probably got some staying power.
Marketability.
Yeah, right.
Sure.
So in Judaism, he picked specifically Shiva and mourning, and specifically he was intrigued by I don't know if you're familiar, you probably are. The custom to cover mirrors.
Sure. Yeah.
That's kind of universal. No matter where you go, any denomination, you cover the mirrors.
Sure.
So, I've been, both my parents passed away, covered the mirrors, didn't even think about it. I assumed it meant like, don't focus on your physical and,
That's what I always thought. That was the point. Yeah,
that's kind of. So this guy he pulled all the research he could find on mirrors.
Okay, on mirrors.
Mirrors, yeah. And mirrors have an overwhelming abundance of research about the fact that mirrors are an emotional amplifier.
Mirrors are an emotional amplifier.
Yeah, whatever you're feeling when you look in a mirror, it becomes stronger in your mind. So if you're feeling down, you feel worse. If you look and you want to, that's why mirrors. You look and so you look good, you look even better.
Oh wow.
Right, that's why mirrors are such an attractive thing for people. When they're getting ready to go out. So. He said, and I apologize for not knowing it. It's like he said that, well, when you're already feeling distraught and down and grieving, the rabbis were careful. The Torah didn't want you to feel overly distraught to get to the point of despair.
Wow.
So they covered the mirrors because if you look at the mirror while you're feeling the state, it'll amplify your despair. And that's why I've noticed a very peculiar thing. I don't know if you noticed it. I don't like looking at myself during a Zoom call. I've practiced turning off my camera for me. And I know some people don't like it, but I found myself getting more intense, good or bad, on Zoom. And I was like, why am I doing that? It's like I wouldn't talk about like that on the phone.
Right.
So I find when I turn down and even if people want the camera on, I just train myself to not look at it, and I'll put the other person's face on the screen, whatever it is. Yeah. But I don't look at myself during Zoom calls because I don't want to amplify. I want to be authentic.
Yeah.
So that's the coolest thing I've ever learned about Judaism from the research based on mirrors.
Oh wow, that's so neat. Now I'm gonna have to try that because to be honest with you, I don't have very many Zoom calls. So at my other job, we use Slack. And so Slack has a built-in, streaming, whatever thing. But you have to see yourself. Or at least I haven't figured out how to turn off my camera during a meeting, but allow the other person to see me.
See it, yeah.
So, yeah, that's interesting.
Anyhow.
I mean, that is kind of the way it works to have a conversation, right? I can't see myself talking to you, right?
It's more natural like
this.
If I would have a mirror over your shoulder and watch me, I'd be very self-conscious.
Right.
And I'd be drawn to focus on myself, not you. There's a lot of layers to this, I'm sure, but it's an interesting concept that I've kind of noticed. That's the beauty of the ancient traditions of Judaism. We've learned what not to screw up. We pretty much messed up everything except life cycle. Birth we do pretty well. Marriage we do pretty well. Death we do pretty well. I mean, I have so many people say
it's life we're working on.
Yeah, it's the stuff in between the birth, the marriage, and the death that needs work. But those three were still okay. And I have so many non-Jewish friends who told me, it's like, wow, I heard about the Shiva thing.
Right.
And my Jewish cousin told me about it. And I thought it was stupid, and then I tried it, and then I was like, it was amazing because you're so this death and then go back to work thing immediately you don't, it's almost crippling because you don't emotionally process the grief of the loss of the individual, because you just go back to something else. My mother did a brilliant thing. She always wanted to be buried in you can learn a little bit about my family history.
Yeah, please.
My mother was a kid who grew up in a Hasidic town in Lviv or Lemberg, Poland. My grandfather escaped with them 2 weeks before the Blitzkrieg to England for the war. Yeah, he was in England on business and saw the newspapers really, what was really going on, not what the Polish newspapers were saying.
Sure.
My uncle and my mom got out, and then they came to America after the war. And so she always wanted to go to Israel, live in Israel, but she never really could. She ended up in the States and lived here. Her father checked himself out of the, we called it old age home at that point. Retirement home, whatever. Checked himself out, cashed some bonds, flew to Israel, saw our old relatives and cousins and friends, and then he got on the plane and he died on the plane way back. And pretty cool. Nice way to go out.
Dying on an airplane.
The last place you were is Israel. Nice way to go out,
But here's the question. So you're about to die on. I can't believe we're even talking about this. You're about to die on an airplane.
I started with the mirror thing.
Did they hand you the? First of all, what kind of flight was it? What
commercial?
It was commercial. So El Al, or was it?
I don't think so.
You don't think it was El Al? Because I was going to say, if you're going to die on an airplane, El Al's actually not the one you want to die on. It's good Jewishly because they'll know what to do. However, Israel's, socialist airline truly is a throwback to the 1970s because I've never gotten so little a cup of water in my life. It's like I understand that Israel deeply concerned about how much water they have, but come on, I got 2 Russians on either side of me. They're staring at me. Someone's going to hand me a kid at some point.
Very fun.
So can you just imagine, you're about to take your last breath and you're like, can I just get some water and some peanuts? No, not really.
And then
we don't offer that.
The next generation. My mom, for the last, I don't know, maybe 40 years, she lived until she was 85. She says, okay, so when I die, I want you to bury me in Israel and sing this, my favorite song. She had a song that she liked.
Yeah.
I'm like, whatever. Pass the chicken. And so little did I know, my mom sold her house and put away $25,000 with my oldest brother to buy tickets for us to fly her to Israel and a burial plot in Israel to bury her there, so that we wouldn't have any reason not to go. I can't afford it. So she forced us all to get back together and take her to Israel for her last, trip on Earth. So that was her. And then now I have kids and grandkids in Israel. So it's, the world has, I spent a couple of years there, but now my as Rabbi Yehuda Levi says, we are here, but our hearts are in the West. In the East, we're in the West, our hearts are in the East. So my kids and grandkids are there, and it's very exciting. So the Jewish world is becoming more Israel-centric, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, I was just reading, I think it was Washington Post did an article about the number of Israelis who are leaving.
Yeah, like
And
70,000 left, like 50,000 went. There's actually probably a net left.
Oh,
a
it
little bit
is.
more.
It's the first time actually in Israel's history that it is having more people
More
leave.
outflow.
And you already have an issue with the Olim because I think it's something like 40% will end up going back to the United
Yeah,
States.
a lot,
or Britain
a
or
lot
whatever.
are one and done for a year or two, and then they come back.
And then there's
there's
this
less from Europe too, Russia
Right.
and Ukraine.
Right. You have fewer people pulling in. I think it's interesting, this idea. Rudy Rochman has proposed that actually what Israel needs to do is focus on genetic testing and finding people who are in like South America, Africa, whatever, and bring them in. But then that's going to require, working on race relations and cultural whatever.
You know the bad joke about why God created the diaspora?
No.
So that Israelis can feel comfortable with religion.
Wow. Yeah. There you go. Yeah, I can see that. Well, it's a big issue because you have these young people, because it's young people,
Yep.
right? And they go to school and they get super into tech, right?
The tech bros.
The Israeli tech bros, and then they move to Berlin or
Berkeley
DC or wherever. And that's I think they said it's like 30% of the tax base.
Yeah, a lot of wealth is going out.
It's brain drain, yeah.
Yeah, it's also interesting. I was reading yesterday about this community in Italy. A lot of expat Israelis started in some little town.
Yeah.
Most of the, and this is probably true, most of the, you read down, the people leaving Israel are more on the less religious side.
They're Hiloni.
More of the people who are making Aliyah are more, religiously motivated.
Sure.
So it's definitely shifting in that sense.
That's interesting to consider because then you're going to have an Israel that is becoming more and more culturally Anglo. Right. So things like, yes, we'd like customer service.
Right.
Yes, we'll say, what was it? I saw someone somewhere was being interviewed. It was someone who had made Aliyah. It had been like 10 years or something. Right. and the interview where it's like a man on the street thing. And he asked, like, what's something you still can't get used to? Get used to about Israel. Like after all these years, like what's one thing you can't get used to? He said it was when and it was a Canadian. So that made it even better.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I thanked a bus driver, and the bus driver got mad at me.
What's wrong with you, bro?
Like, why are you thanking me for driving the bus?
Pretty weird.
Right? Like, why are you being so weird? And that and I'm standing in line. That Israelis don't stand in line.
Yeah.
But that's true of a lot of countries. That's not an Israeli thing.
That's hilarious. My son misses, he calls it Shabbat Sheni Shagalut, Sundays. He just misses Sunday off. Because in Israel, it's really a 6-day work week, even though Friday is kind of get ready for
it's
Shabbat.
like a half day.
It's like a half day.
Right.
And now the Israeli Stock Exchange just moved to Monday through Friday.
Really?
Yeah, they just changed it because they realized they were losing a lot of business because most stock exchanges are not open on Sunday. They're open on Monday through Friday.
Right.
And the Israeli Stock Exchange has done really well. So they're kind of aligning with the rest of the world. Yeah, it's interesting. You have, I think, a large number of kids below the age of 15, 20 that are more traditional, they define themselves as religious, quote unquote.
Right.
They'll do like Friday night dinner. I mean, most of the country does Friday night dinner. Even non-kosher food. I mean, you can import pig from Russia for the Russian Olim, but no company is. I mean, there's like a 35% of the country keeps some level of kosher. So it's almost like if you don't get kosher supervision, it's a dumb business decision because you're losing 35% of the market of Jews in the country.
Well, right, yeah.
So, like, why would you do that if you could, just from a purely business sense? So it is shifting in that sense. You're gonna be, and so I think people are worried that it's going to become a little bit more, dare I say, theocratic, or theocentric. I mean, it's already become more pronounced. You see the protests about the draft, or you see the people, who are vocal about different religious things in Israel.
But it'll be mixed. It'll be interesting, though, because if it goes more in that direction, but then you have all of these Anglos and
yeah.
whatever, who have a different conception of how government should look.
And religion.
And religion,
Yeah.
much more pluralistic,
100%.
even within being very religious, right?
Yeah, my son and his friends are all Anglos.
Okay.
He started a cyber military unit for the IDF.
Okay,
And
wow.
He's a quote-unquote, air quotes right here, you can't see me, Haredi.
Okay.
But he's like, and I'm like, yeah, but you need a job. So
Right.
So yeah, whatever. I don't care if you learn Torah, but like you need a job. So,
Right.
And
right.
you can't get a job that's good if you don't go to the army. So you're going
Right.
down. So
right.
so he started a cyber unit, and all these Haredi guys who are Israeli wanted to come because they wanted just jobs.
Yeah.
And then you get trained in cybersecurity and tech, and you become like a Haredi tech pro.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
very interesting, the phenomenon. The Boston Rebbe said, what will cure the extremeness of Israel? Americans.
Yeah. Well, right. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Because we're like, hey man, can't we all just get along? Like,
Right. Can't we all stand
I
in
just
line?
want a falafel. No,
Right.
I
Can't we
don't
just be
get
nice? Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. No, it's so true. Now, to put it in the context of Richmond is like culturally, I would say like the opposite of Israel in a lot of ways. Like in so many ways. And I feel for, and I know here at the school you probably have Israeli, expat families.
More and more.
Yeah, and I feel
Public schools are becoming less comfortable for them because of the Israeli kind of soft or hard, anti-Israel feeling out there. That's more of a vibe that's bubbling up last 2 years really. Yeah. So they're like, I'm not religious, but I want to be around, safe and maybe Hebrew and Jewish culture.
Well, this is the thing you and I were talking about a while ago, about this idea of affiliation.
Yes.
Right? And we use this term, this is like, I need to write a book that's like something like 10, no one would buy this book, but it would be just for Jewish professionals.
Right.
And it would be 10 words we should ban now.
Yes, never use this word
Never
again.
use this word
Don't
again.
say the word.
Community is a word I'd like to ban.
Oh, really?
Young Jewish professional, love to ban that one.
Yeah, that would be good.
Affiliation.
That's
one I'd like to. Denomination.
Yes,
movement / all those terms. Yeah. Oh yeah, no, I want to get rid of all of it. It'll never happen in my lifetime. But
someone asked me, what are you? I said, I'm Jewish.
Yeah, right. And depending on your day, depending on how Hashem is treating you, the ish can be,
I mean, who said it? I think Lubavitcher labels are for
sure, it's
vegetables
not people or whatever.
Shirts or something. Yeah. It's true. But, we like to compartmentalize and identify. But, a lot of Israelis don't realize until they get here. Like, in Israel, you don't have to affiliate with anything, and you're just Jewish because the calendar's Jewish, the country's Jewish.
Yeah.
Here, if you don't, and it's sad sometimes, if you don't institutionally affiliate. Right, and I'm much more part of that than you are. You're kind of the uninstitutionalized institution. I admire and I'm very also. I'm curious how you find, like you said, people don't want to come to classes, but they'll listen to the podcast. So how do you deal with a less institutionally centric Judaism? People don't like going to shul. People don't like, I want to sleep in on Shabbat. And I'll read the Chumash. I just want to do it in my pajamas. I don't want to get up and go and travel. And
I daven in my PJs.
That's right.
I got straight up.
I have a friend who went on a cruise. He said the best davening he ever had was, just going out on the deck on the balcony over the ocean. Praying. He said he felt more connected to God doing that. It's like the Rabbi Nachman, go out in the woods.
Yeah.
So there is something to that, and Israelis realize pretty quick, if you don't have some type of connection, I mean, like, you can't just affiliate by going to Trader Joe's before Passover and getting matzah. That's not enough. You got to go to the JCC. You got to go to something. Go to shul once a year. But you got to do something Jewish if your kids are going to be, in the Jewish cultural milieu and developing Jewish identity. And that's the thing. But a lot of Israelis are fine. I'll get an Israeli come in, give me some attitudes like, hey, do I have to wear kippah? Do I need to wear a yarmulke?
Kippah, that's
I'm
right.
I'm like, I don't know, man. Do you want to wear
a
kippah? He's like, no. I'm like, okay, don't. And then like 5 minutes later, it's like, maybe you got a yarmulke for me? Like, they're used to, like, am I going to mug him spiritually? Am I going to accept him only if he religiously does my thing?
I've seen you deal with that, like literally talking to adults in rooms, and that's a challenge.
And I'm kind of got that ortho optic, rabbinic optic. I'm bald.
You
handsome,
are a Chat GPT generated.
Yes,
what does a cool rabbi look like?
If he was a cool rabbi, it would be me, bald with glasses and a beard.
The whole deal.
And someone came to me and said, "Yeah, you only think that it was a big foundation, not here, another community." And this guy who had a chip on his shoulder about Judaism, baggage, and he's like there with his two Jewish colleagues about a grant proposal.
Okay.
They only hired you because you're Orthodox. So I went like this.
It took it off, yeah.
And I said, all right, now what's the problem? I took off my kippah and I said, now what's the problem? I said, you don't know me.
Yeah.
I said, you don't have the right to judge me based. I said, you don't even know if I'm Orthodox. I said,
right.
I happen to be wearing a kippah.
Right.
I said, which could symbolize many things.
Yeah.
I said, now, if you want to talk about religious philosophy, but they hired me because I'm the best person they had for the job.
Yeah.
Sir.
Yeah.
And I said, that was a little bit cutting.
And how did that conversation? So you say, "Sir," and then they left and never came back.
The two non-Jewish guys went like, "Oh!" and they started laughing.
Ooh, dis. Yeah.
So I did get the grant.
Okay.
But I was probably a little bit irreverent. I am an irreverent rabbi. I'm different than most Orthodox rabbis. Many Orthodox rabbis, and the farther right and the theological spectrum you get, feel. Since I've learned a little bit more Torah than you or Talmud than you, I therefore know better than you how you or your family should run your life. Right. Das Torah, this opinion of the I'm steeped in Torah. And I will tell you, perhaps the greatest scholar in the world, maybe they have some divine thing, but I don't think there's necessarily a mainstream, like in Catholicism where they have like the Pope is infallible. I don't think there's a doctrine of infallibility in Judaism. Certainly not anyone level of scholarship, you or me or around here. Maybe the chief rabbi of wherever, you could argue that, but certainly it's not a normative thing that we would just say that because. But some people feel the more more learned I am, the more I know, what life should. And again, if someone's life is a train wreck, I think anyone with life experience or wisdom, which I believe is the highest level of wisdom is experience.
Right.
But just because I know a little more Torah than someone else doesn't mean I know how they should run their lives. I barely know how to run my life, my kid's life. Now, I'll tell someone my opinion, but some people are scared that they're going to take away their personal autonomy in order. That's the price for me to accept you.
Yeah.
You give up your personal autonomy for me. That's very dangerous in many ways.
Yeah.
It can be. And that's just, people have to get over that. I have to be also welcoming.
Yeah.
People can feel. Kid told me once, before you even speak, people think you're negative. I'm like,
wow.
I'm like, why?
Really?
Because I'm negative? He says, no, because you're the head of school. He says, your office, people assume. I said, so let me get this straight. In order for me to sound positive, I got to sound really positive. And if I say positive, I sound neutral. And if I sound neutral, I sound negative. He says, yeah. Pretty much. I'm like, wow, thank you for that.
That's a very Southerner type of attitude, too. Because my mom will complain about that. She lives in, what you call, quote unquote, the old folks' home. She lives in an assisted living community, and she's from Atlanta. Right. We have this a little bit of Atlanta history, you and I. But she said, the people here, they're not friendly. And I said, well, Mom, they're very professional. And then the people, meaning the staff, are very professional. They smile, whatever. And then the residents, I don't know those people, but they seem... And I realized, no. She's used to this like Scarlett O'Hara, like extreme level of like, oh, darling, welcome to the... And it's just like this extreme... Yeah, it's just the extreme kindness. Yeah. Just to like hand you a cup of coffee. Yes. Right? And I'm like, no. There's an authenticity to people just being themselves and not projecting this image.
I remember the first time I ever met someone with a Southern accent who was Jewish. It blew my mind. I'm from Baltimore. I grew up technically Southern-ish, but...
Orthodox, grow up.
It was confused. My father, I was like 21st century Judaism before it was a thing. My father came from a secular home, 3 generations assimilated, and my mother came from a Hasidic home in Europe. It was a very like, you're going to be really, really educated, but do whatever you want. Or we're really going to do Shabbos dinner, but, after that, kind of decide what you want. So it was a very interesting...
Makes you a very good person for the job you have.
It does, and I didn't realize people weren't like me, because I have, one relative is to the right of, Donald Trump, and one relative, immediate relative to the left of Bernie Sanders, and, holiday meals are really weird around my house when they all get together. So it is, people know within, that blink thing is true. You knew within a minute at most when you met me of this, is this a person who's just putting on an act so that they can get something from me, or they really like me because they just like me as a person?
Yeah.
I try to do that, especially can do that with kids.
Yeah.
Like, kids are just, they're kids.
Yeah.
And sometimes adults, we have lots of baggage and lots of layers and lots of lenses through which we will view the world and judge people. And so I try not to do that as much. I'm sure everyone does it to some degree.
Right.
But yeah, I actually try to find the comfort zone with other people. And the good news is I'm a very eclectic. I have so many varied interests. So, I try to find that interest. There's a local rabbi I know who's not Orthodox, but he loves Musar. Well, I love Musar. I love studying that. So we just talk about that. Or Israel. I have another rabbi in town who's not an Orthodox rabbi, but our kids are both in the Israeli army, and it's like, okay, we talk about that.
Yeah.
So finding that common ground with people is so critical, because people want to know, like, am I in or am I out? Am I acceptable or not acceptable in the other's, circle? Mm-hmm. And we all want to be accepted for who we are, not because I'll change to be like that person.
Right.
That's kind of a cheap way to get into ingratiate yourself with someone. Anyway, it doesn't work long term.
No.
It's like faking, to be in a relationship to be something you're not. It's not so much of a. It's not an approach that works so well. Yeah, it is challenging.
So what was your parents' common ground?
Okay, full disclosure, I'm putting this out now. Common ground. I'll talk about the common ground and what was not common ground.
Okay.
The common ground was, they were like, back in the old day, after World War II, basically anyone who was a Holocaust survivor, which my mother was, they just had one goal.
Yeah.
Get married, have kids.
Yep.
My mother wanted to have 100 kids.
Right.
After her fourth kid, she had a miscarriage, and then she had me when she was 45, and that was it. Doctor said no more.
Yeah.
She desperately wanted to get married, and a cousin of a cousin, my father was a good-looking Jewish guy, who was, a teacher, artist guy. Okay. And they, and back in the day, even the most Orthodox, I'm going to scandalize everyone, even the most Orthodox synagogues, like in Baltimore, you met someone at a Saturday night dance. The fear of all Orthodox rabbis is mixed dancing, right? But it might lead to mixed dancing. But
you're throwing out all the oldies, man. These are good. These are good. Yeah.
So my mother met through family connections, and they ended up. So the commonality was they really wanted to start a Jewish family. They were both traditional homes. They kind of knew each, and that was that. But eventually, it was too much of a stretch. And when I was like 15, that must have been, let's say, after 30-some years of marriage, they split up.
Okay.
Because it was too difficult. But my dad kind of like, you do Jewish how you feel comfortable with. So my mom kept a kosher home, and we went to day school, and we went to a very modern but Orthodox synagogue. And my dad, like, it wasn't like I wanted to go to a conservative or reform. He just, I don't want to do anything.
Right.
Like,
I'll do whatever you're going to force me to do.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. Like, if I have to go, I'll go. Like, and that's how it was. And then, they grew up and they got married, and then they lived in the Jewish neighborhood. There used to be a Jewish neighborhood. That was the thing. Jewish neighborhood. You didn't have to be religious, but you
lived in the Jewish neighborhood. Sure. And I mean, this was America. I mean, people lived in ethnic neighborhoods
until 1960s, until
suburbia.
the white flight to suburbia. I mean, I look up to Itamar Shorsh. He was Saul Lieberman and JTS's main student, and he got up the last graduation. He says, we blew it. We meaning conservative Judaism.
Right.
He says orthodoxy was archaic, reform was kind of elitist.
Right.
And conservative, that was where, the masses were.
Right.
And in the 50s and 60s, we were ascendant.
It was the largest movement in Judaism at the time.
Far,
and it was the thinking man's Judaism in some ways.
You could be, really traditional and really professional. It was a sweet spot. He says, and then we blew it. How did he say blew it? He says, we blew it when we were afraid that the shuls were going to get somehow, white flight was going to damage all the Jewish shuls, so we allowed people only. Yeah. Read Isaac Klein's book on Jewish.
I know exactly where you're going with it, man.
He's like,
I know exactly where this is going.
You can drive from
the
your
Teshuvah
house
on driving,
to shul and shul back to home. That's it. That's the only difference between conservative and Orthodox
At that
halacha
time.
at that time.
Yeah.
There's also like wine and cheese. You can rely
Yeah.
with no hechsher
Right.
but that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
So it was my brother-in-law, who's now very modern Orthodox, went to Akiva. His dad started Salman Schechter's, and he went.
Oh,
to,
wow.
And I said, "Why'd you go from conservative to modern Orthodox?" He says, "I didn't."
Yeah.
He says,
It's
"I
one
didn't."
of those
He
the
said-
party
he
left
said-
me
He
type
says
movement.
the party
yeah.
left me.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
says, "So I'm exactly how I was as a kid." I said, "Oh, I didn't know that." So the truth is, Itamar Shor says, I'm not talking about halacha. I'm not talking about whether it's indirect or direct malacha to work to fire a engine by pushing the gas. And he says, I'm not talking about halacha.
Right.
I'm talking about sociology. We destroyed the
Right.
need to live in a Jewish neighborhood, and
Right.
therefore kids did, and he said if it wasn't for Camp Ramah,
Right.
conservative Judaism would be way worse off than it is already
Right.
now. It happened to be they did an artificial community in the summers. Camp Ramah was the great success story of the early camp movements in the 40s, 50s,
Right.
60s.
Right.
And-
I met
and-
my
and-
wife at a camp.
Yeah, there you go. You
Yeah.
are living proof.
Yep.
Okay, so even to today, that's where most conservative Jews, that's their bastion. Orthodoxy realized when, Samson Benderly started the Talmud Torah movement for after school,
Yeah.
and Jacob Schiff gave him the equivalent probably of $10 million to do it, to get all these thousands of kids in New York, to be Jewish
Right.
and the Ramaz, Moshe Zalman Margulies, he was in the shul with Mordechai Kaplan, and he said, "Yeah, this isn't working after 20 years
Yeah.
and $10 million.
Yeah.
It didn't work." And he started a day school, the Ramaz Day School, for his grandson, Rabbi Luckstein, and they went a whole different direction. So Orthodoxy, when Rav Soloveitchik in Boston and Rabbi Sampson in Baltimore and Rabbi Luckstein, Rabbi Maz, the Ramaz and Rabbi Margulies in New York, when they started the day schools, NYU, they did their school, at TA, they went a different direction. They said, yeah, public schools are going to be too assimilatory,
Okay.
and after school is going to be too resented, and the kids don't like going.
Yeah.
And they're just going to grow up as not affiliated there. And since they already knew that the neighborhood started to splinter because
Right.
modern Orthodox Jews also went, well, why would we spend $100,000 more
Right.
for 1,000 feet less
Right.
of home
Right.
when there's a rabbinic supervision on saying, yeah, drive
Right.
5 miles
Right.
back and forth to shul.
Right.
So Itamar Shor says that's when we lost the high ground.
Mm.
And then Reform became a little more traditional and
Right.
Zionistic.
Right.
And Orthodoxy became a little less archaic and more modern.
Right.
And so it kind of squeezed. So people either moved to the left or to the right. And there were many communities that happened to. But yeah, it was kind of sad because, it was and is still a very, very powerful model for people. But you have the old school, the new school. But I guess everyone goes through growth pains and different things like that. But it's sad because there's no real old Jewish neighborhoods.
Yeah. Yeah.
The best thing was, I think in California, Rabbi Sherman, the conservative rabbi, he made a rule that you may not move more than, I think it was a mile from synagogue, even
Okay.
after they matired, even if they allowed driving on Shabbos.
Right.
He says, no, you have to live near synagogue because otherwise...
He wanted
the
you to
synagogue's
walk.
there. He wanted you to walk, or even if he didn't care about the heter of driving,
right.
he wanted you to live in the neighborhood. I have a friend who's a professor. He was at Sarah Lawrence, and now he's in UVA, Jewish studies professor. He classifies himself probably as conservadox, or
Yeah.
I don't know what he really considers himself, but he lived next door to like a reform or a conservative temple, synagogue, and he would drive on Shabbos uptown like 3 or 4 miles
Yeah.
to the Orthodox shul. I'm like, dude,
Right.
what are you
right.
doing?
Right.
I like, why are you schlepping up here? You don't even come for davening. You come. Is the Kiddush here that much
Right,
better? It's JFK.
right.
He says, no. He says, my kids' friends are here.
Yeah.
He says, so I just come and drop them off, and they have play dates and lunch
Yeah.
and Suda, and then they do the run around the neighborhood thing here because there's still like a dozen Jewish kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want them to have that communal feeling. It's tough, and especially for you, my guy. Like here, it's an artificial community a little bit, but not even. I mean, I think we've lost the art of Jewish community. That's the secret sauce of why the Orthodox community grew, I believe.
Yeah.
Because I did not like Orthodox Judaism growing up. I didn't like day school. I didn't like knuckle rapping rabbis. I didn't like being judged in shush in schools. There's 2 things I liked: candy men in shul.
Okay.
So I would just walk in and like, you know, because I couldn't get this candy at home.
Right.
And they would like, you know, if you came in for like the junior minion or whatever,
Right.
you get candy.
Oh yeah, bribery is
So
an amazing thing
shul,
like that.
And then like B'nai Akiva, I went with a youth group. I wanted to see, you know, girls.
Yeah,
So
sure.
you know, and my buddies from school. So we went. And then Friday night, I actually did enjoy the Shabbos meal. My mom was a great cook, and you know, the food. It, you know, I tell everyone. I've told you this joke before that I actually think there's only one worthwhile movement in the Jewish people now for religion.
Yeah.
You know it, right?
Go for it. Yeah.
Foodieism.
Foodieism.
I'm the chief rabbi of foodieism.
Yeah.
Because that is where, you know, what's the biggest event in Richmond, Jewish event? It's not Rosh Hashanah. It's not Yom Kippur.
Right.
It's the Jewish Food Festival.
Right.
Where more people go through that, Jewish and non-Jewish, than any other event. More than high holidays, more than Passover. So I'm like,
I'm with
that's
you.
Pretty cool.
I will tell you that in my world, you know, when people move here and they're going to live somewhere outside of the Eruv, right?
Yeah.
Which is like everywhere, basically, right? From Mechanicsville, you know, to the southern
Glen
part
Allen,
of
Chesterfield,
Mosley,
everywhere.
right? The whole deal. The questions I get told frequently as a pushback, and it's like New Jersey people, like New York, New Jersey, Connecticut people.
Yeah.
There's just no Jews here. And I'm like, no, there are. There's at least 20,000. I think that the data is wrong on that. I think it's
Probably
actually
more.
40.
You
I think it's
so?
double. Oh, absolutely.
I think there's a lot of invisible Jews.
Well, that's exactly what I mean. That's exactly
they're not on radar Jews, but they're here.
And what I say to them is, what you're not seeing is these ethnic communities. You're not seeing, which by the way don't even exist anymore. It's a figment. It's a retrojection in some ways. Yes, nostalgia. And so they'll say like, but where's the kosher bakeries and where's the? And I'm like, well, you know, if you want this type of thing, you need to go here. And they get kind of annoyed by it. And of course you reserve judgment, but of course it's always in the back of your head. And I always think to myself, yeah. But it's this thing of, you know, you want to make sure there's 3 synagogues all on the same street that you don't go to. You know, things like that. You want to make sure that there's a kosher bakery that you go to once a year.
Yeah.
And that's not an economic model that works. And by the way, you also wanted to live in the suburbs. You chose that. You made a deliberate choice.
That's why Chabad's been successful. They went to the, you know,
you have to do it.
Mountain to Muhammad. They went to the people.
You have to go there. And you know, like our Hanukkah party, you're talking about the Jewish Food Festival. You're right. We will have 1.5 times the number of people at our Hanukkah party than for Yom Kippur.
Ooh,
seriously,
wow.
Our biggest event is Hanukkah, but it makes sense.
It makes
because
perfect sense.
We get Israelis who come and they're like, this is enough for us. That and they're like for Shavuot. I stole this from one of my rabbis, Rabbi Josh Lesser, wonderful man who brought me to Judaism. And you should use this. We should probably trademark it and give him credit, B'Shem Omro. But for Shavuot, a Mount Sinai mountain of ice cream.
Okay.
So you make
That's it.
You make
Done.
a mountain of ice cream.
Drop the Shabbos mic on that.
You
That's
use
beautiful.
you use a Keebler elf from Moshe
Up on
Rabbeinu.
top.
You make little Sukkot with graham crackers and
just
whatever.
People for Kiddush will come in.
And then the kids, they watch the show of you explaining, you know, the 10 Commandments and whatever.
The first
and
thing,
then they eat Moses.
The first
cannibalism.
We started off talking about old Jewish customs.
Yeah.
You know the oldest Jewish custom for Jewish education is? Are you familiar?
The honey.
Honey on the aleph.
Yeah.
You bring a kid you wrap them in a talit or her in a talit, and you bring them into the school, and you have the aleph beis letters and the tactical taste.
Right.
And the aleph bet, you trace the letters and you taste the honey and you associate sweetness with Judaism for the rest of your life in Torah.
I would assume that as an educator, you probably know there's some kinesthetics and memory making and things that they didn't know at the time, but they figured it would work.
Even the smell. And by the way, what is the most powerful food connection we have really? Probably horseradish on Passover, honey on Rosh Hashanah. I mean, there are food smells. Smell is an activator of memory almost nothing else.
Fried onions and potatoes.
Yeah, I will smell a chicken soup and I will think of my mother. I'll think of my mother and chicken soup and it throws me back to another. By the way, I also think Torah, there's not a Jewish... You know, I study Daf Yomi. I study one page of Talmud a day. I'm disappointed. Like in Charleston, during COVID, I said, look, we're going to start an online Daf Yomi of Talmud study.
Right.
Why? Nobody's going to come to it. I said, no. the critical mass of Jewish stuff you need in a community is a Daf Yomi Shir that no one attends, right? That you just need to know that there is.
That is exactly what I deal with. That's exactly what I deal with.
So I'm not going to come to it, but it's comforting to know that we
it
have.
exists.
The reason I'm so glad, the Pops got a kosher pizza because if I want to take a non-religious friend or business partner or relative even to kosher, there's really not that many places to go. JC used to be and then shut down. And so, just to have a place to go, even if I don't normally go, it's nice to know that there's a place to go there. It's interesting. But you're right. We have been struggling since the implosion, since Itamar Shorsh's observation that we imploded Jewish neighborhoods.
Correct. Yeah.
Rabbis have been facing an uphill battle. Day schools, summer camps, Israel trips.
Right.
I mean, you get that last Hail Miriam, I guess, with the, birthright.
Yeah.
But seriously, how many of these people, the first time they meet other Jewish kids is Hillel on campus?
Right. Yeah, I was just talking to an adult yesterday for coffee, and she was saying, I am Jewish, but I didn't grow up in a Jewish neighborhood, and then the first Jews I really met was Hillel, and I'm like, yeah, I'm glad you had that experience.
Not everyone does. Here, we have a teacher who came to interview, Jewish, grew up there, married to a guy from Greece.
Yeah.
And she's like, we moved down here from New Jersey, where, lots of Jews. My husband was convinced there were no Jews here until when they saw a Hebrew writing on a locksmith truck go by. And she says, there must be Jews here because Hebrew letters.
That's interesting.
That's the. She lived way out in not Goochland, in the northern part.
Okay.
Glen Allen, northern
Glen Allen.
Nobody lives there. It's a very suburb. So I didn't know there were Jews. There was no synagogues. There was no Jewish. It wasn't even like there was Jewish food section in the.
Yeah.
It's not even like here. If you go in the city, you can always find
there's a kosher
fish
section
and matzah where nobody buys it. But, but that's my point about Daf Yomi. You want a kosher section of food
that you don't eat.
That you don't eat.
Right. You're going to buy yours handle every 5 years.
That's right.
It.
We'll mock the gefilte fish in the jar, but we know that it's there because it's authentically, ethnically Jewish and connective.
Yeah.
And I'm look. I was blown. Have you been to Panama?
No, I haven't, but everyone's telling me to go there. Yeah.
Same size Jewish communities here.
Yeah.
They have 40
synagogues or so. Yeah.
A dozen synagogues, 5 day schools. And the rabbi who went there was Chacham Avad Yosef's Chavrus of Rabbi Levi. They have a chief rabbinate there that's, they're in charge.
Yeah, sure.
So they said, if you want to have a bris or a bar mitzvah or a wedding or a funeral in this community, here's the rules.
Okay.
Nobody moves to Israel. You can have a house in Israel, but nobody moves to Israel.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, they're big Zionist supporters, but nobody moves to Israel.
Right.
You may not live. You can go study somewhere else, but you got to live in Panama when you get married.
Right.
If you're in this community, you got to go to. You got to be a member of a shul.
Okay.
Right.
Wow.
You got to send your kids to a day school. And you need to live in one of the areas around that community, and it was for a 20,000 person community. Now they did have a lot of money from the Panama Canal Zone and all that.
Yeah, it's long.
But seriously, they're punching above their weight.
Right.
And I was jealous. I was like, daggone it, why can't we do that here?
Well, I think that's where partnerships really matter. Because so for example, I was thinking about this idea of what are the questions that new to Richmond, people ask me. Mm-hmm. They ask me, where do I get a good bagel? They complain about there's no deli,
Knish,
and stuff like that. And you do have non-kosher options and things like that. And kashrut's not really what they're asking for.
No, they want traditional.
They want traditional. So as an example, I've thought the Jewish Food Festival is very successful. But there's a trend going on socially where people want more of smaller things, right? So
personal, you mean?
For example, I think it's a post-COVID thing, and I think it's the Gen Z thing of
interconnection.
A more personal connection. I was talking to a woman who, sadly, she's about to leave the Jewish community here and move. But, I asked her, she's one of these people who goes to everything, right? Like every JCC, every federation, every whatever. She's there. And I asked her, what do you think is something that those of us who are kind of in it need to know? What's the thing that we miss?
Yeah.
And she said, organizations need to move away from the great, big, huge event that everyone's supposed to come to and everyone's supposed to buy tickets for. And this is another one of these controversial things. Don't shoot the messenger. I'm repeating what someone else said.
Yep.
And move towards more smaller things.
Yeah.
Move towards
More
things
often,
that are a little
more
more often, more niche, not niche necessarily,
more small
but
touches.
Yeah, exactly. And so like one of the things I was thinking about is, why not take a kitchen somewhere and open a place called Broadway Deli, and you do it once a month.
Yeah.
And it's straight up. It's pastrami, corned beef, rye
Cafe,
bread,
Cafe Avery,
knishes,
falafel.
and then maybe it's every other month. Maybe it's like Ashkenazi, Sephardi, Mizrahi, whatever.
I will tell you, it was so exciting. We had the VIS, we had our independent school accreditation.
Yeah.
It happened to be on a couple of days when there was a much more kosher food options in town than normal because the food festival and stuff.
Yeah.
And it was nice being able to buy food that, Jewish, and part of their thing was they asked the kids, what's your favorite Jewish food?
Okay.
And Knish one with brisket second,
right.
that type of thing. I think, jokes are funny because they're partially true. I think foodieism, gastronomic Judaism has really been a linchpin for millennia.
Yeah.
Of Judaism.
Yeah.
That bad joke. What's Judaism on one foot?
Right.
They killed us.
We tried. We survived.
We survived. Let's eat. They killed us. We didn't survive. Let's not eat. You ever
heard of a place called Lair House?
Yeah, sure. That's Franz Rosenzweig and Buber and all those started it.
So there's now a tavern called Lair House.
Beautiful.
And they have a sign. It's a kosher restaurant. It's like a pescatarian, dairy joint.
Yeah, sure.
But it's also a bar.
Nice.
I forget where, somewhere in Boston. And they have a sign on the wall, and it's like a like one of those things where you like put in like the date or whatever, old school, right? Like you'd see in like the lobby of a hotel.
Yeah,
like
sure.
the Schwartz Bar Mitzvah, room 22, right? That kind of thing. So painted on the sign is it was something like the date. What are we dealing with? Do we get to eat or not? And they just swap out. Do we get to eat or not?
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, the truth is, there's a lot to that. And now, Judaism it's so interesting. We're dealing with, in the challenges is now people are wondering. My mother always said, "Have your passport ready."
Yeah.
And I'm like, what are you talking about?
I have friends that are leaving. I get it, going to Israel.
Yeah, I have friends also. And the truth is, some of them are leaving because they're unsure of the future in America. They think it's like Germany in the 20s and they don't want to get to Germany in the 30s, you know? And some people are like, it's time. The Jewish future's there, not here. We had a good run, but that's where the future is. And it's a scary proposition. And, everyone thinks they're the center, but, who do Jews vote for? The joke politically.
Yeah.
And I told someone, I said, I was taught at a young age, you vote for you vote against the thing you're most terrified of the extreme of.
Oh, interesting.
So am I more scary of, the far side of Mamdani, Linda Sarsour, or am I more scared of the far side of Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes?
Right.
They're both terrifying.
Right. It's the horseshoe theory.
I think it was...
becoming a circle.
Yeah, becoming a circle. The extremes meet at the end. And I'm sorry to say, my non-Jewish friend who started a curriculum on Martin Luther King's, human rights, Eleanor Roosevelt, universal human rights, he said basically... He says, the reason in Germany why it happened, he says, I'm a student of history, he's a professor of history.
Yeah.
The middle crumbled. The extremes took over. It was socialism and communism fighting against nationalism and Nazism. And Hitler got voted in with 33% of the vote. The socialists, they were like 20%. Same thing in Iran, by the way. I didn't realize until recently. In 1979, the way the Ayatollah didn't have enough power to take power.
Right.
You know who his allies were?
Who?
Communist Party, and then when he took over, he killed all of them.
Right.
So they didn't have enough on their own, but the extremes coalesce against each other, or the enemy, my enemy is my friend, and it's scary for a lot of people. What does the future hold in America? So I can't really argue with people who want to go to Israel. On the other hand, I think people are becoming more connected to the Jewish community at the same time.
Yeah.
And they want to feel that kinship. Here it's tough because, Hirsch Goldberg was here, so it was such a larger than life thing, and his parents lived here and were like adult eds for Wexner or some type of a Jewish educational initiative here. So it hit home. It hit home here, and so we try to be very. I actually like the way Jews have been less judged in one large swath like the rest of the Jewish community, like in England or
that's true.
Some communities are where it's like you're responsible because some Jewish soldier did something we don't
right.
That's like in Saudi Arabia they killed the thing, so all Arabs are responsible for that. Like the logic is distorted, and yet it's real. But then you see such wonderful things happening at the same time. I'm so proud of the young generation. I gave up on adults a long time ago.
Oh wow!
Not because I don't like adults. I'm not Peter Pan. I mean, maybe in some ways I am Peter Pan. Or what's the Hebrew for Peter Pan? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Fievel Pan. But adults, the cement's dry. We can change incrementally. It's hard for us to see change. Children, the potential, the cement's not dry. It's unlimited potential. So the hope for the future is the youth in any society. And I think in Judaism, the reason why I took the harder path of going into Jewish education and doing the exact... I'm the George Costanza of Jewish education. I do the exact... Remember that? I do the exact opposite of what I wanted. What was done to me, and it will be great.
Yep.
So, I do the exact opposite of what was done to me as a child, and I've been pretty successful. I think we need to really prioritize acculturating young Jews to Judaism, because the scary thing now is they're being educated in a vacuum in some ways that slightly distort Judaism or Israel or Jewish values or what it is. And it's like you want to have a good root foundation, to build upon. Yeah. And it's so to me, every kid that comes under some type of influence, I hope is for good. And I hope that's what I'm most proud of. At the end of the year, there's a kid I know in the school who wouldn't have gotten into the school. He had some special needs. Yeah. He had the most he had a bar mitzvah at a conservative shul, and it was the most adorable video he made. And I honestly, I didn't even know he got half the stuff he was talking about. Really? I didn't realize here that he was absorbing it by culture, by peer observation. Right. Because he doesn't get the 92 on the test. Right. He has learning disabilities. But Jewish osmosis is a thing. Yes. You can learn from experience. It's almost like Heschel said. Avram Yeshua Heschel says, we need more text people than we need textbooks. Right. And you try to be a text person and set the example, living example. Right. I like that about you, actually. You kind of walk the walk, and even though you probably could get away with not doing that because nobody would judge you. It's like, really? It's like, well, you don't care. And yet you do make it a priority, and that's very important, because I really think kids see and people see what we do much more than and when we do good rather than looking good, and when we show an example of really what tzedakah is, really what comforting someone is, when they're in time of need. So it's good stuff. Yeah. How's your experience been here? It's so funny because you seem like a nomadic rabbi.
Itinerant.
Range Rover.
I mean, my job is to, if you were to take our email list and the addresses that we have, right, and you were to do a plot on a graph, where do people live? It's like a Jackson Pollock painting. It's like someone just threw paint at the thing, right?
I like that.
And so where is the Eruv when the Eruv goes from Mechanicsville to Short Pump to Moseley to Sandston? Yeah, it really is. And so, and when I say the Eruv, what I mean by that is what are the boundaries, right? Like quite literally the boundaries. Yeah. But then also where's the spiritual center? And I've even joked, geographically there is no center for us. It's impossible. Yep. Maybe this school is, if you were to draw
as close. Some would say the JCC. Some would say the school. But it's hard to say any one.
But then culturally, there's a problem with that. So let's say, for example, let's say, like we said, the JCC or a school, or let's say we had a building on Monument Avenue or whatever, it wouldn't work because it's this. My wife and I call it the Kevin issue. So this is a bit of a backstory, but basically she worked with this guy named Kevin, and Kevin had Jewish parents from Jersey who moved to a part of Georgia that no Jews, right? Yeah. And they just kind of assimilated, right? Yeah. They didn't go to church and stuff, but they just assimilated, right?
Disappeared.
Kevin grows up with kind of nothing, ends up marrying a Catholic girl.
Yeah. They
raise the kids Catholic. He has latkes sometimes, right? Yeah. That kind of household, right? That's his Jewish, right? But then his mom passes away, and he goes to my wife's office or calls her or whatever and says, "Hey, does Patrick does he do funerals? Is that a thing?" And she said,
"Yep.
Say no more. We got this." And we took care of everything and did what you do what you do, right?
Yeah.
But I think about
that's another reason why I don't do adults. I don't like funerals.
You don't like funerals? Can I tell you, I love funerals. I love them.
could tell that you would find them meaningful. Yeah.
I love funerals. Obviously, I don't want people to die.
Yes.
Let me correct that slightly. But I do. I find it very meaningful.
So
in my world, spiritually, structure is not a thing. It's all kavana, no keva.
Yeah.
When you have a funeral, what's remarkable about it is that there's a kind of orthopraxy that happens where people will tell me, because it goes back to the state of grief, Rabbi, what do we do?
What are we supposed to do?
As opposed to when I have weddings, which I do more of.
Yeah, it's we want to do this.
Yeah, well, we're going to customize this and make it, right? You don't have that kind of opportunity. No. So creatively, it's, who was it? Orson Welles, I believe, said, the absence of limitation is the enemy of creativity.
Absence of limitation.
The absence of limitation.
Interesting.
Right? Because when you have to work within something,
you force yourself to...
You go into different creative depths. So you lose breadth, but you gain depth.
So that's your halachic parameters.
And that's kind of the way I try to think about it. Is what are the limitations? And I have certain ones. And some of my colleagues would say, well, that's apikoros, you're a heretic. Other people would say, why are you so, they wouldn't use the word machmir, but why are you so stringent about this other thing?
Yeah.
Why do you buy kosher meat from a farm outside Charlottesville, right? But then, you'll go eat in a non-kosher restaurant, right? But the thing is that I have based it on a particular set of parameters that I have studied, okay? But my derech, my path, isn't necessarily the one everyone else is going to take, right? I've had people come to Shabbat dinner who find out, who the real me is, which is, I hope, me all the time.
Yeah. And
they're like, oh, this isn't, I thought this might be a little more from, right? Yeah. Or I've had experiences where people have come to our home and they're like,
whoa, you're Haredi, bro.
This is really? But you know what? I try to model, this is just a leadership thing and not a congregational thing, but I try to lead this is the way I live my life. I live my life based on the study I've done. If I lived somewhere else or studied something else, I might be someone else, right? I come into this school, so right here, right now, we're in a little conference room. I'm wearing a kippah. I'm going to leave this place, go to a coffee shop. Good chances I'm going to take the kippah off. Right now, kippah is not the most important thing. No. And we could do a if you guys would show up for adult ed, I would teach you about why a kippah. I get cut to commercial.
Shameless self plug.
Listen, my wife just taught a class on davening, and it was very popular.
That's great.
So it could be that I'm just a bad teacher. I'm considering
maybe your wife's
that.
Popular.
Yeah, she is. She's the genius. Anyway, when you have this buckshot map
goes,
and everything is everywhere, how do you find a middle? And the middle that I try to say is, you learn, you keep learning, you adjust accordingly. You don't necessarily say, I'm sorry for whatever it is you used to be, because you were working with the information you had at the time, and you adjust and you let people know, here's how I'm adjusting, and you move forward. And I had someone say, well, if you lived in Israel, what would you be? I'm like, I'd only eat at kosher restaurants. I'd probably find some orthoprax, conservadox, whatever type thing.
More traditional.
More traditional, but filled with weirdos.
Yeah.
And you can find that in Israel. That's easy. Yep. You just get on a WhatsApp group. You'll find your friends. No big deal. And that looks very different than the life I lead now out in Midlothian, where I'm davening in my PJs and feeding my cats and drinking coffee.
Even Spinoza said that. He said you can be, if there was a Jewish country, he would be personally more.
I didn't know that.
He did. I actually asked Nathan Lopez Cardozo because I saw it quoted. I'm like, did he actually say that? He says, yeah, he wrote it.
Really?
He said that outside of Israel,
right,
he doesn't feel that the halachic trappings are.
Spinoza
himself said it. I was like, are you? Ben Gurion wanted to take the teachings away from those who were banning him.
Yeah.
The ban off. I wanted to share with you my favorite piece of Talmud.
Please.
Halavai osi azvu terasi shamar sha'or shebo machzir lamutav. This has been my whole career, my whole life is based on this.
Okay.
God says, quote, God says, I wish they would ignore me. Halavai osi azvu, they would forsake me. I wish they would forsake me. But terasi shamar, but they would keep with the Torah, keep learning the Torah, keep doing the Torah.
Keep shmor, like they would guard essentially, or
shmor, learn it, do it.
Okay,
hard
context. Okay, got it.
We translate learning or immersed in Torah. Sha'or shebo machzir lemutav, because eventually the light of the Torah will turn them back to good and to me. Meaning it's okay. It's okay. God's like the Jewish mother's going to sit in the dark. It's okay. Right. As long as you just do your say Shema every day, whatever it is.
Right.
And that's really been big for me. And I struggle. My brother and I are very mirror images of each other. He was supposed to be the Orthodox rabbi. I was supposed to be the ball player. We sometimes flipped somehow in the middle of our lives. And he decided not to fight from within on the hypocrisy that he saw in the traditional community. I decided to try and make incremental change from within. But we love each other dearly.
Yeah.
And I always struggle with how is halacha this thing that's suffocating to some, but meaning making for others, and where's that balance? I was reading the day that Zalman Schachter died.
Yeah.
I happened to be in the library and I saw this book that said The December Project. I didn't know he died.
Okay.
Right, and it said The December Project. I flipped open the covers from Zalman Schachter, and a woman who is a reporter from the New York Times, I don't remember her name, co-wrote it. A book about how to not freak out about one's impending death.
Wow.
December of life.
Sure.
And I was drawn to it, and I took it out of the library, and I read it in one sitting. It was like 100 pages. And I was blown away by it. And he said things that were so radical. It's like, I wish halacha would allow cremation because I want my ashes to be sprinkled with my ancestors in Auschwitz when I die.
Whoa.
And I'm like, whoa, holy cow.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I get that.
Yeah.
I know and his wife didn't do it. He's buried in Boulder.
Right.
But that sentiment, I'm like, wow, that was like, boom, power.
Yeah.
And it had turned, and then I found out that was the day he died.
Wow.
And I still keep in touch with the woman who wrote. In New York, she's a reporter. So that was, Zalman had this thing about, pushing that envelope.
Mm-hmm.
While knowing where to stay in the tradition is a very complicated thing. How do you know when you're being heretically rebellious or, taking Torah to the next level?
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't know for decades. What was Spinoza? What was the Ramchal? What was the Baal Shem Tov? What was Mordechai Kaplan? You only know sometimes in retrospect what their impact was.
Right.
So I hope we're doing good stuff, but I admire that approach. You do the best you can with where you are, and the truth is you're reaching people that I can't reach. I'm for the much more institutionalized. I'm gonna invest my children, our most precious asset, and our money, one of our precious assets, in pay now versus pay later. You're dealing with people who are already out in the world trying to find out, is there a way to stay connected, to Judaism. So,
absolutely.
So I think you, in a certain way, have a harder job than I do, because I've semi-captive audience. I mean, I do have to. I have to attract them and keep them, but they're here, and we can do a Shabbos party, and we can do the foodieism, and we had a first time ever a Sigd.
I saw pictures of that on Instagram.
And they made Sigid soup. I didn't even know what Sigid. I mean, I heard about an Ethiopian holiday. I don't know what it was. It's 50 days after Yom Kippur.
Yeah.
Didn't know about that.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it's harder for you to get people to adult education. It's like, yeah, I'm busy, you got life. It's one of the things I do, but I don't know. I admire what you do. So your podcast has been going how long?
How long has it been going? We've had 25 episodes, so we'll say 25 weeks, something like that. Yeah,
that's very cool. And we it's like it's a classic example of how do we, Christianity wrote originally. I didn't know this until about a week ago, that Christianity was trying to make, as opposed to Judaism, was trying to take. I'm going to say it correctly, but I'm going to say it slowly. I think Mark said they wanted to put new wine in old flasks.
Right.
That was Christianity.
Right.
Rav Kook.
I was about to say, please quote Rav Kook, because you're a cook, Nick.
Yeah, I am a cook, Nick. I'm a cookie. But I'm not a cookie cutter. He flipped it on its head, and he says, for Judaism to survive in the modern era, it needs to be old wine.
Yep.
In new flasks.
Right.
What a completely different worldview. Both trying to do the same thing. How do we take Judaism and bring it kicking and screaming into the future?
Right.
In Christianity's sense, they took it too far and separated from. In Rav Kook's sense, the modern, you just can't stay in the Beit Midrash only.
Right.
People aren't going to come to synagogue all the time. So
right.
You got to take your old wine and put it in a new flask. And like a podcast, that is a new flask for the old wine of adult education or a shiur or, going for... In the old days, what they used to do, they'd have, a week, they'd have kala.
Right.
Where everyone from all over wherever would come in and study. Or
right.
Monday and Thursday, they'd come in and hear the Torah reading.
Right.
Okay, now, even though we have cars, ironically, people just are less likely to come and gather.
Right.
They're more likely to do, like you say, small, continual touches.
Yeah. Intimacy. I think a spiritual intimacy is what a lot of people are looking for. They want to hang out with, 8 to 10 people max.
Yeah, that's why Shabbos tables, dinner tables are so rockingly powerful.
Yes.
Friday night dinner has done more for Avi Buchwald said when he was in Lincoln Square. He says, "What's the key to Kiruv to bring people closer?" He says, chicken on Friday night. Yeah. Chicken.
It's not, I appreciate it when people say, oh, you're doing these, radical, unique, whatever things. I'm like, it's just dinner, guys. I just have people over for dinner. Right. And then some of them hang out with us every time. I think the greatest thing we did was not having a membership system,
Beautiful.
Which I know people still scratch their heads. They're like, well, but you're a shul. I'm like, yeah, but you don't have members. Absolutely. No members. If you're on the email list, you're a member. We have over 1,000 members. We're the largest shul in Virginia. Like, what do you want from me?
Well, that's Billy Crystal and Glenn Gene Wilder's things about Jews. Billy Crystal's like, Jews are funny because we believe in the absurdity of a God we can't see.
Right.
Like, so we're just funny by nature.
Yeah.
Do you remember that scene in Frisco Kid? Gene Wilder's the rabbi, and he falls asleep, and he wakes up with the Native American Indian chief.
Yeah.
He says, you believe in a God that you cannot see? Yeah. But he can do anything? Yeah. Can he make it rain? He doesn't do rain. And then, like 3 seconds later, you hear...
Yeah,
and it starts raining, and they both look at each other really awkwardly, and Gene Wilder doesn't know what to say, so he says, and just like that, he changes his mind.
Oh, my God. All right, well, I think we'll leave it at that. Rutland, Torah Academy, RTA.
Elisha Paul.
Yeah, we just got to hang out with Rabbi Elisha Paul, the head of the school.
Yep.
RTA Richmond Hebrew Day School in Richmond, Virginia. We didn't have young kids. We just, leveled up and adopted a teenager. But I'll tell you that when I was here for an open house, I came up with a slogan for you.
Oh, what's that?
Okay, so here's so you can give this to Rivka.
Okay.
I'll sign away my rights. I'll sign away my rights.
I'll say a quote.
It's a donation, donation of intellectual property. Okay. RTA, it's what school's supposed to be.
Oh, I love it. That is beautiful.
Because that's what I felt when I was like, this is what school's supposed to be. I saw the little kids running around, and there was someone helping with the refrigerator or something, and you were eating cheesecake, and I was like, yes, this is what school's supposed to be. So feel free to take that.
It's what school's supposed to be. I'm going to put that on
I'm not asking for
tagline.
10% or anything like that.
But that's a lot of nachas. Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm very excited to be part of the podcast world. It's my first podcast, so I'm excited. Yeah.
All right.
I'm very curious to hear myself speak. So I'm gonna go when it's there. Please email it, and I will send it out to all my relatives. My mother would have been proud.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, friend.
Thank you, Rebecca.